Coming up on This Week in Work, fraud, deception, or just a sign of the times? As more workers secretly hold down 2 or 3 full-time jobs, we ask, is this about greed or survival in an economy which is pushing people to the very, very edge?
And I promise this isn't about football. This could be one of the best leadership successions we've ever seen. Liverpool's handover from Klopp to Slot avoided the usual chaos and this week delivered a Premier League title. Have we just witnessed a masterclass in succession? And why do so many organisations get it wrong?
And in this week's Workplace Surgery, when your business collapses, can you really rebuild? One listener asks how to start again when their company, their confidence and their future are all on the line.
This is Truth, Lies and Work, the award-winning podcast where behavioural science meets workplace culture. We are brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network, the audio destination for business professionals. My name is Leanne. I'm a chartered occupational psychologist.
And my name is Al, and I'm a business owner.
And together we help organisations build amazing workplace cultures. We'll get straight into today's episode right after a quick word from our sponsors.
Welcome back. It's Leanne's favourite time of the week. It's time for the news roundup.
Yes, it is. Cue that jingle out.
Being cued. Lee, I'm guessing you've seen some stuff this week. Is there anything happened in the sporting world?
Well, yes. Yes, there has. And in the past week, that's something that happened gave us a near perfect example of what the science says great leadership looks like, and specifically leadership transitions. Now, before I lose any Man City fans, any United fans, yes, I'm going to talk about Liverpool. I am a Liverpool fan, but this isn't about football. It's certainly not about the fact that Gary Neville himself admitted that Liverpool's Premier League win now means they are the biggest and most successful club in England. It's not about that.
Since you got so excited. Delete my microphones out of this.
No, this is about leadership transitions and I guess the psychology of letting go and moving on. So how leaders step aside, protect team morale and leave a culture that survives without them. Here's a quick reminder of what happened and to fill you in if you have absolutely no idea why I'm talking about soccer to our American listeners. So in May 2024, Jürgen Klopp stood on the Anfield pitch for the last time as Liverpool manager, but instead of making it about himself, he did something truly remarkable. He said change was good. He reminded everyone that Liverpool is bigger than one person, even him, and he encouraged the fans to back Arne Slot, the new manager, by singing this.
So I'm going to play here a YouTube video, but if it's not here, then it means there's been copyright issues. So it means we'll link to it below.
Arne Slot, la 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 la.
It was the perfect setup for a healthy and effective leadership transition. There was no ego, there was full support for the next chapter, a clear message that the culture must outlive any individual. So then we fast forward to May 2025. I think it was April actually. But Arne Slot has unbelievably just led Liverpool to their first Premier League title since 2020. And what does he do in his moment of glory? He thanks Klopp, not just privately, publicly, on the pitch, in front of the fans, singing the very same song that Klopp led the year before.
It feels great, but I don't think I want to say a lot. The only thing I can do now is send my appreciation to Jürgen. So there we go. Jürgen Klopp! La 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 la. Jürgen Klopp! La 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 la.
So yeah, a very rare, powerful moment I think every football fan, apart from possibly United fans, would appreciate. And psychology helps us understand exactly why this approach to leadership transition worked. First of all, we can't underestimate the importance and effectiveness of succession planning when it's done right. Research shows that outgoing leaders who validate their successes protect trust, reduce uncertainty, and maintain cultural strength. And secondly, humility strengthens transition. So both Klopp and Slot showed unbelievable levels of humility, not competing for credit, sharing it. And this behaviour is linked to stronger, more resilient teams. Finally, leadership isn't about leaving a legacy of high performance, it's about leaving a culture And the real test isn't how good things are while you're there, it's how good they are after you've gone. And at Liverpool, that culture not only survived, it flourished. Respect, gratitude, low ego, a shared identity, a shared reason that carried through change. So if you are leading a team today, the real question isn't how successful am I right now, it's how strong will this team be when I'm no longer here? Al, thoughts?
Oh, well done. Congratulations to all Liverpool fans. I'm like a weekend Liverpool fan. I like watching football, but I don't really follow anyone. So obviously my wife's team won. So yeah, cool. I'm up for that. I'm a little bit perturbed by the idea of a Klopp slot. It's a bit like, just don't bend down too much, love. They might see a Klopp slot. Oh. Anyway, should we take that out? Told you I was creepy. This is going to sound weird to bring it back to our own RX-71 that Leanne designed, but a lot of the stuff in there, sort of recognition we talked about recently, there's a lot of fan recognition, there's recognition of the team. All of the R's seem to map perfectly to the team, to the Liverpool team that won. So, yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, and I think reason is the key one here, particularly in terms of maintaining that levels of engagement and performance. I mean, research has shown time and time again that when leaders can embed this strong shared sense of purpose, this reason, then it's this that explicitly reinforces everything culture related during transitions. So employees stay more committed, more motivated, and more resilient. So yeah, Klopp wasn't just handing over a team, he was handing over a clear purpose. And yeah, every organisation should be bigger than the number one person in charge. And I wonder if maybe some of our tech friends have lost sight of that. But anyway, enough of that.
Potentially. I mean, I just go back to, I know you don't like me using the word Manchester United, but just go back to Manchester United. Back in their glory days, they had a Klopp, didn't they, in the form of Sir Alex Ferguson. And then a lot of things that Klopp does and Slot's doing now was, Sir Alex was doing it way back in the 90s, wasn't he? So, a little bit of love for our friends who are just 50 kilometres along the motorway.
Yeah, but I think, you brought it up. I wasn't going to go here. But Alex Ferguson is the GOAT. He's possibly the greatest football manager of all time. He did incredible things at United to the pain and heartbreak of every Liverpool supporter. He left, and that transition wasn't managed as well as this one has been. They've been through, 6-7 managers at this point. They're languishing at the bottom of the table. Leadership transitions are so important, and probably don't talk about that enough, actually. But succession planning in general, and it should be something as a small business owner you're doing at every level of your business, because we all know in a small business how disruptive it is when somebody unexpectedly leaves. Succession, that was a great TV show.
That was a great TV show. Yes, it was.
Anyway, let's move on. What have you seen this week, Al?
Okay, so Ryan Hogg on Yahoo Finance.
Ryan who?
Ryan Hogg.
What a name.
It's a great name, isn't it? I think it could only be better if his name was Randy Hogg. That would be even better. Hi, I'm Randy Hogg. And this week on... Anyway.
Mr. Hogg.
Mr. Hogg, Ryan Hogg. I'm so sorry, Ryan. We genuinely love your name. It's a cool name. In Britain, we only have something like Booksmith and all these boring
Elliott.
names. Elliott, yeah, boring name. Anyway, he was quoted on, he got an article on Yahoo Finance. Yahoo Finance is where you're going to find all the best articles by the very best people. Leanne, weren't you on there a little while ago?
Yes, I was. I was talking about the government's plans to bring in a number of coaches to help long-term worklessness.
Yes, you are. Anyway, so Spotify's HR chief has come out saying, and this is what Ryan's reporting on, saying remote staff aren't children, and as the company sticks to their work from anywhere policy. Now, this is kind of a bit of this is a breath of fresh air.
Go on, Spotify.
It's a breath of fresh air compared to a lot of the RTO mandates from some of the tech companies that you wouldn't expect as well. Remember when Zoom did? Yeah, Zoom.
Yeah,
what?
Low point.
Yeah, weird. By the way, this is the week that Skype died. I know. I don't know how they managed to muck that up, but anyway, different story for a different day. So, as we said, there's a lot of tech companies who are dragging people back to the office, but it seems that Spotify is completely swimming against this tide. So here are the key points from the article. First of all, Spotify's chief HR officer, Katarina Berg, made this brilliant statement saying, and I'm going to quote directly here, "You can't spend a lot of time hiring grown-ups and then treat them like children." I mean, that's just obviously absolutely spot on, exactly what Leanne's been saying. Secondly, despite going through a major overhaul in 2023, where they laid off about 17% of their staff, They've kept their work from anywhere policy that they introduced back in February 2021. No backtracking like we've seen with Meta or Amazon. The third interesting point I thought was this approach seems to be working for them financially because their market value has apparently doubled in 2024 with record quarterly revenues whilst cutting costs. So the whole idea of people must be in the office, be productive argument looks a little bit shaky here. And fourthly, and I think this is really telling, is that attrition rates, i.e. the percentage of people who leave, were 15% lower in 2022 compared to pre-pandemic levels in 2019. And they've improved the diversity of their talent pool too, which is of course what remote work is great at. You could have a fabulous person who lives in South Africa but could never commute or would never relocate to, is it Sweden or Denmark where Spotify is? I can't remember, I think it's Sweden. Would never relocate there, but you can still, have them as part of your team. Now, the report does go on to say that remote work is not perfect. Katarina Berg actually acknowledged that it's harder and we all struggle to collaborate in a virtual requirement, is what she says. But that doesn't mean they're forcing people back just because it's trendy. I thought this is really interesting. They're trying to entice people back. Occasionally, they have these sort of listening lounge things they call. I think they're called listening lounge. Yeah, listening lounge. So they have the listening lounge sessions with actual rock stars and stuff, and they encourage people to come in during what they call these core weeks for strategy chats and reconnecting. Again, this is hybrid. I think a lot of people are going, I'd never want to go in the office, and people are going, everyone should be in the office. Generally speaking, it's in between, isn't it? It's absolutely in between. It's hybrid. So, Lee, what are your thoughts? Spotify onto something here, or are they just trying to avoid? Maybe they're just trying to avoid a morale hit after those massive layoffs and just doing this just to make people feel better. What do you think?
Yeah, but what a brilliant way to do it.
True.
What a brilliant way to do it. We know that what's even more extraordinary about that attrition statistic is that typically we see about a 30% voluntary turnover after an organisation makes layoffs in the following 12 months. So the fact that they've actually managed to reduce their attrition is really quite impressive. It's no surprise that they've improved their diversity. I can't imagine there's there's no issue with performance, that they're cutting costs and increasing revenue. And it's not about saying we don't need to connect, we don't need to collaborate, and we don't need the value of that in person from time to time. Of course we do. But it's that intention. It's that why are we coming together? What are we hoping to achieve? What is this for? Is it for building relationships? Is it for building connection? Is it for ideation, collaboration? And what drives employees nuts is when they're told they have to come into the office because that's how we collaborate and communicate. And they spend all of their day looking at their computer on Zoom calls and the manager isn't even in the office. Yeah. And then the pain of that 1 hour commute is even more painful because there is another way of doing it. I'm not overly concerned if an organisation wants to be 100% in the office. I'm not too concerned if an organisation wants to be remote. I applaud the organisations that are remote first because I think it's a really smart way of capitalising on current sentiment, current technology, current trends. My beef is the RTO mandates that hide behind collaboration, coordination, ideation, whatever shun you want to give it. It's rubbish. It's nonsense. It's not. It's about control. It's about managers having eyes on people because they haven't got the skills to manage anyway. It's nonsense. At least just be transparent about the fact you want people in the office because that's where you want them to be. So yeah, good for you, Spotify. A really great case study of the power of remote work, both for an organisation and the individual. I applaud you. Well done, Spotify. Although, if you've watched the Netflix thing on Spotify, it's a 4-parter, really good, really well put together. They don't get everything right, I think. But anyway, that's by the by. Lee, what else you seen this week, my love? Polygamous workers. Oh, say that word again. Polygamous. Am I saying that right? Yeah, I think polygamous.
So.
That's how it's spelled.
Yeah, polygamous.
Polygamous workers.
Right, well, what the hell is that?
Polygamous workers. So yeah, this was from the Times. Published this
fancy these
story.
Days, aren't you?
I know. It's called The Rise of Polygamous. Am I saying that right? You got me down myself now.
No. I think so. We look forward to your letters.
The rise of polygamous workers and efforts to catch them out. Pesky little workers. So it's looking at a growing trend of employees secretly working 2 or more full-time jobs at once without telling their employers.
Right. Okay. Yes, I've seen a lot of this on Reddit. There's, I think it's called Anti-Work is a big Reddit subreddit.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, cool. Go on.
So since the shift to remote work, some people have been juggling multiple contracts, either using AI to get tasks done faster or using mouse gigolos. mouse jiggling software to fake activity. And it's being dubbed polygamous working. I think we've also heard it called like moonlighting, isn't it? Or,
yeah. There's lots of fancy
overemployment,
words.
Another thing it's called.
Yeah.
So a recent investigation by the National Fraud Initiative.
Jesus, this got real serious real quick, didn't it? National Fraud Initiative. Go on.
Mm-hmm. National Fraud Initiative found over £500,000 in overpaid salaries in just a few London boroughs. And now councils and employers are cracking down, warning managers to look out for red flags like long email response times. How dare you even take a moment to think about a problem or a response? Refusal to take time off, or employees, how dare you be overcommitted to my organisation? Or employees avoiding video calls because clearly that preference isn't okay. There have been cases in court. One civil servant allegedly held down 3 full-time government jobs at once.
Bravo, well done. Good for you.
Yeah, but I guess this is where it gets interesting and maybe a little bit uncomfortable because, yes, working multiple full-time jobs without disclosure is dishonest. And yes, there are some serious implications around trust, productivity, potentially ruining it for the rest of us when it comes to remote work. But I think the important question is why? Why is this happening? We are in the middle of a cost of living crisis that's been going on for, well, really, have we even recovered from the pandemic? Has that even happened? Inflation squeezing every single household, getting on the property ladder if you're under 40. Is that even possible now? Particularly in London, and job security doesn't exist anymore. The amount of layoffs that we see. So in that context, is it any wonder that some people are looking for ways to earn more, even if that means bending and, let's be honest, sometimes breaking the rules? Workers are being chased for having more than one job, and yet, you know, the hypocrisy large organisations still exploit as many loopholes as they can to dodge tax, to dodge accountability, to pay people what they're worth, quietly trim headcount to boost margins. It doesn't excuse the behaviour, but I think it just makes me wonder, are we focusing on the wrong problem? Why are we spending money, or why is this fraud initiative, whatever it is, spending money to catch out these hard-working people who are just trying to stay afloat? I just think it's a bigger conversation about how we build fairer, more sustainable workplaces that actually pay people a living wage. It isn't about fraud to me, it's about frustration, it's about survival. But maybe I'm just on my soapbox. Al, what do you think?
It's not fraud, it's frustration. That's a brilliant t-shirt right there. Right, okay. The way I look at it is that, and I've been very open about this, is that I don't really care how long it takes someone to do a particular job if they're working for us. I want an outcome. And if that outcome is really, really good, then we'll pay, good money for it. If it just does the job, we'll pay the minimum we can for it. But it's outcome based. And it really surprised me when you said there was actually court things, because I didn't know that was fraud. I thought it was just a bit like, you shouldn't do that. But I didn't realize it was actually fraud. So if you are doing this, just double check, that you're not actually going to get yourself in real, can I say the word shit? Yeah, I can. Yeah. But I'm like, why? Why care? Because if these people are clever enough and they leverage technology enough to still get 3 jobs done in their week, fine, great. I think I look at it as then the managers are going, it must be overpaying them. So the managers are getting, like you said, greedy. The managers are getting greedy and going, we can actually probably pay less for this. Mm-hmm. No, hang on, you're still getting the same outcome. Anyway, right. I borrowed your soapbox there for a second. I'm going to step back down. Please? Yes, there you go. Back to you.
Yeah, no, I think, do you know what? I think these are 2 words that I think are going to be talked more and more about over the next 12 months. Psychological contract.
Right.
As employees, we have a psychological contract with our employers. And that has not only been breached in the past 5 years, it's been ripped up a little bit at a time, screwed up into a little tiny ball and then thrown at us in a really irritating way. There's just none of it left. I just want to clear up. Psychological contract, for anyone who's not come across that term before, what does it mean? It's just these expectations that we have of our employer. It's about their behaviour, about their promises. It's about what they've committed to us as an employee. Like allowing us to work hybrid and then calling everybody back into the office. That is a breach of psychological contract. So if things like, if I show up, I work hard, I stay loyal, you'll support me, you'll treat me fairly, you'll invest in me, you'll develop me. When people start feeling like that's true, then it completely changes how we behave in the workplace. It completely changes how our dynamic with work works. That's where quiet quitting comes from. That's where rage quitting comes from. That's where every trend that you see on TikTok is coming from. It's certainly where overemployment is coming from. And when we look at the levels of disengagement as well, which are higher than they ever have been, I just don't think it's any wonder. And my frustration is this constant finger pointing at the individual, rather than saying what is driving you to the point where you are having to commit fraud and have 3 jobs. Because I can't imagine there's many people out there that just want to be that busy.
If you, talking being busy, if you go back about 2 weeks ago, we had Cass Briscoe on talking about why being busy is the wrong thing you should be saying. So if you do find yourself saying I'm very busy, go back and listen to that. Lee, I love this because you've essentially summed up most of the problems in work as breaking a psychological contract.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. So we fixed your workplace for you. Anyway,
so yeah, I'm sorry for the rant there. Started on a high and ended on a rant with some hog in the middle.
Some hog. It was a hog sandwich. Yes. Okay. Well, look, after this very short break, we'll be back with a hot take from Rebecca Taylor on why pigs make very delicious sandwich. But no. She's talking about why gossip might be more important at work than you think. Do not go anywhere unless we've just offended you with our stupidity around hogs. See you in a second. While Leanne wipes the tears from her eye. Well, one thing I love about my wife is that when she finds something really funny, she proper belly laughs and then cries as well. And it's brilliant. Anyway, if you're a regular listener, you will know that every week we bring on a workplace expert to share their hot take on the world of work. And today's guest knows just how much of it happens when we're not in the room. Because behind every policy, promotion or pay rise, there's usually a conversation and sometimes a little gossip about who's in, who's out, and what happens next.
Yeah, so whether it's that awkward meeting, an accidental glimpse at your CEO's calendar,
or their Klopp slot.
Or their Klopp slot. Maybe those quiet conversations that maybe spark real change. Work isn't as formal as we like to pretend. That's where Rebecca Taylor comes in. She's the co-founder of Skill Cycle and the co-host of HR Confessions, a podcast that brings real HR stories to life with honesty, humor, and a sharp eye for what's really going on behind the scenes. For today's hot take, Rebecca is here to explain why gossip isn't just inevitable, it's how work actually gets done. And if we can learn to handle it properly, it might just be the key to building better workplaces.
So my hot take is that all work is just a collection of gossip. Yeah. So if you think about the actual definition of the word gossip, because I don't want to assume that everyone has the same definition. It's one of those words that it has an emotional reaction to some people, right? But if you think about it, the actual definition of gossip is 2 people talking about someone who's not in the room. So if I'm going into a job interview and I interview for a job, and then someone comes in to talk to the person who interviewed me about me, they're literally gossiping about me to see if I'm a fit for that job. And that's the whole purpose of interviewing. So it's literally just talking about this person when they're not in the room and then making decisions about whether or not this person's going to work there in that specific instance. Performance management, it's just gossip. It influences so many things in our lives. We have this big movement right now in the US for pay transparency. So states are passing laws where it's mandatory for you to post a salary in a job description. And it has to be transparent that this is the pay range for this role. It has to be real. It has to be a realistic range. It can't be $1 to $1 million. It has to be actually there. And that came out because of workplace gossip. People started to talk about their salaries. They learned that there was this huge pay gap and that salaries were not necessarily paid in a reasonable way. They were based on whatever you were making before, how well you could negotiate. And so there's been this push for leveling salaries and being transparent about what they are because people are talking about it anyway. So it's been this great movement for equity in the workplace, for transparency in the workplace. And it all started because people were gossiping about each other or about each other's salaries at work. People are inherently social creatures. And so the concept of gossip is about your community spreading word to other members of the community to either promote safety in the community or to inform the community about something.
What I think a lot of people will be thinking is going, okay, cool, but in my head, gossip is bad. So when does your definition of gossip become bad?
To me, gossip is bad when it leads to people othering others in a negative way. So there's including people and then there's othering people. So including is kind of just like, be part of this community. Let's be stronger together. Let's come together around this. And othering is like, go away. You don't belong here. You're different. And it's treating difference like it's a bad thing. So if someone is a sexual predator, for example, it's okay to other them. It's okay to say, stay away from this person, keep them away, don't give them opportunities. There's issues here that people need to know about. But when gossip is about something that's about sharing important information that helps the community or helps other people rise above something, then it's great. Pay transparency is an example of gossip that I'm a big fan of because it does drive a lot of equity that we've never really had before, at least not in the States. And when we look at gossip in the form of how it can help other people either help each other or help themselves, that's when it's good. Everybody talks about someone who's not there. The nature of the gossip all relies on whether or not you're inserting your opinion or if you're just sharing sort of facts and stories and letting the conversation unfold. So if I start a conversation that's just like, oh my God, my friend is such a jerk, let me tell you why, I'm immediately inserting my opinions, and this gossip is meant to bring this person down who's not even here and can't advocate for themselves. That would be toxic gossip, right? We're all guilty of it. We all do it. But that would be considered toxic gossip to me. But otherwise, it's just a natural part of the human experience.
So we have toxic gossip where you insert your opinion into it. We have good gossip, which is we just pay transparency, for example, is good gossip. Not for everyone, but it's good gossip. The best gossip is that juicy gossip.
Yeah.
You're never going to guess, and someone looks around either way to see whether someone's there and goes, do you know who's just done this?
Juicy gossip is the stuff that really catches on. I mean, so right now, we were just talking about this. So I'm reading a book called Careless People. It's a memoir, and it's about I can hold it up, not to like promote it, but Careless People by Sarah Wynne Williams. It's about her time at Facebook. And it's one of those stories that is so juicy because it's about something that so many people know and understand. Facebook is sort of this universal company, right? At this point, Meta, whatever we're calling it now, it's something that is so much a part of our household. And this is a memoir about someone who worked there for 7 years, talking about what it was like to work with Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sandberg, these big household names that we all know about, and telling sort of the story of what it was really like on the inside. We love to know what happens on the inside of things, especially things that seemed at the time untouchable and have sort of changed its status in the world. Facebook, she worked there in 2012 is when she started there, 2011. I don't remember my timeline as I'm reading it. But so that was the time. It was before they IPO'd. It was when they were sort of in this like heyday of this is what our potential is, compared to now where it's sort of this like it breeds a lot of toxicity because it enables a lot of the worst qualities of people, and that's what gets people to engage. But it became what it is because people love to engage in juicy things and they love to insert their opinion on it. And so it gets out of hand when that's not regulated, or if that happens too publicly, or if it dehumanizes people, because that's where a lot of social media has kind of gone. It started as fun, gossipy kind of stuff, and now it's just dehumanizing people to the point where we forget that there are humans on the other side of these accounts that we have. But I don't think there's anything wrong with the juicy gossip, because a good story is still a good story. I mean, it's why we love novels. It's why we love movies. It's all about sort of framing the story. And the ones that are based on a true story are the ones that people really kind of sink their teeth into.
You said work is gossip.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we get more of the good stuff without getting the bad stuff in work? Is that, have I taken the wrong thing out of this?
No, I don't think you have. In order to get the good stuff out of it, we first need to, it's almost like accepting that. It's just really thinking about and acknowledging that business decisions are made based on gossip. And so then how do we want to use that gossip to make better business decisions for our business, but also for our people? Because even when you think about, you're going into a strategy meeting, your company, you're setting your annual goals, right? So you have your objectives, you have your money goal, you have your make this product goal, you have all of that stuff. Inevitably, those conversations turn into, well, who's going to own this? And what participation is each person going to have? What are going to be the goals for the different people who are going to contribute to this? So you immediately start talking about other people who are not in the room, who are going to have a stake in whether or not business gets done a certain way. So if you know that, if you're in one of those rooms and you're trying to figure out, who's the person who's not in this room who can be either included in this project or who could be best set up to succeed by doing this work, make sure you're including them in the right way. And ideally, if you can eventually bring them into the room to represent themselves, that's that great magic of true inclusion. But there are a lot of people in power who, it's their job to make decisions about people who are not in the room, because you can't have the whole company in there, setting goals, right? That's just not a realistic thing. But it's just knowing and acknowledging that there's so much power. Most decisions are made in how you talk about other people. So talk about other people differently. Talk about them, give good feedback, give honest feedback, but make sure that that feedback is delivered to that person and not just said behind their back. And that's where you really start to get a very healthy culture of performance and of learning, is when you turn the gossip of what you say about someone when they're not in the room into constructive feedback for them to act on and possibly change behavior to make a different impact on their work. That's the difference. That's the mandate that I give to everybody, is turn your gossip into actual feedback so people know what to do about it.
That was the brilliant Rebecca Taylor. Definitely go and check out our podcast, HR Confessions. She's a really funny person. And you know when you just meet someone, you think, we're going to get on really well. And we did the same with Kate Waterfall Hill about 30 episodes ago. And when I was like, Rebecca, you and I are going to be friends for a long, long time. I think what really kind of intrigued me about this, and if you listen to the entire interview, which I've edited, well, Leanne's actually edited down so that it doesn't have me going, what are you talking about? I didn't really get it at first. But then I did when she explained it, because gossip is just at its core. It's just talking about people who aren't in the room. And that's how most work decisions are made, like hiring, promotions, pay decisions, even strategic projects. They all involve people who are discussing others behind closed doors. So Rebecca says we shouldn't pretend that gossip is purely toxic. We should accept it as part of the natural way that workplace functions. And we should perhaps use it a bit more intentionally.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that whole definition of culture that people lose their shit over, which I don't particularly like. But is it the Bezos one? Culture is or how your customers talk about you when you're not in the room.
Yeah, I think he says it's brand, but it's equally.
Employer brand, It's how people talk about you when you're not in the room. What I really enjoyed about Rebecca's hot take is that, and I've never you hear gossip, you assume negative, but how she was saying it can actually drive positive change, like pay transparency. I guess any change around some kind of discrimination. It's that workplace gossip that is that catalyst behind what starts these major movements. I thought that was really interesting. So when employees start sharing salary information, exposing those inequities, then they're not hidden anymore. And that gossip then drives that systemic change. I thought that was a really, really cool perspective.
Yeah, and the other thing to consider is that, they always say that the opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. And you have that if people are sharing this, gossiping about their CEO, then they're not indifferent to the company. They're just really passionate about it. And then probably some kind of psychological contract's been broken and they're like, how dare they? So the fact that someone is talking about it is actually quite good, even if it is sort of negative. But the real thing you got to remember, I think, is what Rebecca said about healthy gossip, which is focusing on sharing facts or building community or promoting safety or just chatting about work. Whereas toxic gossip is all about the judgment, or it's about, I think she used the phrase othering as well. So it just be really careful, because you need to recognize when the conversation you're having is strengthening your team and your organization versus the opposite, where it's tearing apart.
It becomes toxic when it's used with bad intention. When you're making a decision and people aren't there, you're gossiping about them, it's worth thinking about, well, how am I making this decision? How can I make this as transparent as possible? What data points am I using to make sure this is fair? How am I including employee consultation? How can I turn these private conversations that happen into real feedback that's going to be constructive for the organization, create a healthier culture? So I think it's a really good reflection point for any leader who is constantly having these conversations, these gossip conversations, and actually thinking, how can I do these with the right intention and make sure that they're fed back in the right way?
Absolutely. If you want to hear more from Rebecca, then you can find her on LinkedIn, or listen to a podcast, HR Confessions. It is really, really good. And then go and have a look at Skill Cycle and see what they do, because I think you're going to like it. Everything you need is going to be in the show notes. Lee, it's my favorite time of the week. It is the world famous weekly workplace surgery where I put your questions to Leanne. I haven't messed that up for weeks now, have I?
Well done.
I know. It only took me like 2 years to get it right. So if you've not listened before, we have questions from listeners. I put them to Leanne. She solves them. We all go home. That's how it works. So question number one. How do I run a wellness challenge that people actually want to join? Interesting. I've just been asked to organise the wellness challenge for about 40 of our office-based employees, and I have no idea where to start. We're all desk-based and we're in pretty remote areas, so things like walk-to-work days or big group events aren't really that feasible. It's also important that we avoid anything like weight loss competitions. We want to make this feel inclusive and comfortable, not something that makes people feel self-conscious. What should we include that's actually engaging, and how do we make sure people want to take part rather than just feel pressured?
I would start with reflecting on what's the objective of running this well-being challenge. Why? Is it because you want to look like you're doing something as a company? Is it because you've had complaints about certain aspects of well-being that people are struggling with? It should help you figure out what people are going to engage with if you understand how individuals are struggling in terms of their well-being. Now, don't get me wrong. Typically, this intention isn't put ahead of these things being announced and then given to somebody like you, poor thing, who's been asked to arrange it. One story that I heard, because I think well-being, we always think, weight, health, walking, exercise, etc., etc. Well-being, the best thing we can do for our well-being is build our connections, build our social connections at work, build those relationships, deepen them. That's also really good for our performance and really good for organizational outcomes. One thing that I heard, I think it was when Bruce Daisley was on the show, and he was talking about a secretary who saved company culture by starting Crisp Thursday.
Crisp
remember
this? Yes, Chris. If
like
for those
chips.
people, chips for American and Aussies.
Yeah, so she was like, no one's connecting. Everyone's really miserable. Nobody even says hello to me when they walk in the door. So she sent an email out to everybody and said at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock on Thursday, we're having Crisp Thursday for half an hour. I'll bring the snacks. See you there. A couple of people turned up the first week, then more and more. Then it turned up, loads of people were turning up for this half an hour, having these conversations, having these chats, building connections, building relationships, problem solving together, identifying areas where people were struggling so they could do something about it. My thought would be to do something like this. I understand if you are dressing up as health, you might not want crisps or chips, but you could do like
celery.
Celery
Thursdays.
Or just bring your own snack. Snack Thursdays, bring your own snack, and we'll just have a chat. Because I think once you do this, you might start to hear the same types of things that people are struggling with. And it might be that if they're at the desk all the time, people are struggling with their back. It might be something else that's going on. It might be setting boundaries at work that people are finding really hard. But I think you're going to start to build that connection, build that conversation, hopefully get an idea of actually what people want. And then even if you don't, you're building relationships. And that's one of the best things that we can do for our individual well-being and for our organizational performance. Other things that you could do if you wanted to throw out some ideas, and I'd say as well, try and get some ideas from other people, maybe set up your own little working group or have them at this Snack Thursday as little talking points that you can ask people about. One thing that could be really good, you said that you work quite in a rural area. There's been really interesting research at the moment into both forest bathing, which we've spoken about. So spending time without devices in nature is really, really good for our mental health and well-being. But also in terms of walking meetings and problem solving. It's a cliche, but you always have your best ideas when you're walking the dog.
You do?
Yeah, or you're walking to the bus or you're in the shower. So it's kind of engaging in this physical activity rather than a cognitive activity that somehow helps our creative juices flowing. So even that, maybe start for every Tuesdays, every meeting has to be a walking meeting or something like that. But they would be my ideas. But ultimately, I think you need to figure out exactly where people want help with their health and well-being and design interventions around that. And a good way of finding that out, if you don't have the data, might be doing something like a Snack Thursday just to get people together.
Fabulous. So basically what Leanne's saying is don't ask Leanne, ask your team. Because is that not like the most, and I'm not belittling your question here because it's obviously, you're like, oh my God, I want to make sure this works. But it seems really obvious, doesn't it? If you want to sell something, go and find people who want to buy it and say, what do you want to buy? If you want to start a club, don't go and start a club for people who are really into hogs and Klopp slots. Go and find out people who are what they're interested in, put that together. Go and ask them. Because I think a lot of people get given these projects and think, oh, well, I have to deliver this and it has to be me. No, just go and ask other people, and I think you'll be really surprised. I also love the idea of walking as well, because I can't remember where I saw it, but someone said when your legs move, your thoughts move. And I found that so often. I used to go out and listen to podcasts when I was out with the dog, and now I don't. I just I just go out and think, and a number of times come back and go, oh, that's what I'm going to do tomorrow. Yeah, I love it.
Any other letters in your sack, Al?
It's just got rude and rude. Just like carry on podding. Yes, so this question number 2, is it possible to start over after your business fails? Well, I can answer that. Yeah, yes, it is. I'm 42 and I've been running my family's business, a medical-grade apparel manufacturing company, since my father retired back in 2014. I joined the company in 2008 after working a few years in telecom sales, and running the business has been my life ever since. So what are you on? You're almost on 20 years, aren't you? But right now, sales are sliding. I've tried everything I can to turn it around, but we just don't have any more to invest in sales reps or managers, and I can't fix it all by myself. Oh, mate, I'm so sorry. Honestly, it feels like the business and my future are both coming to an end. I'm also recently divorced. Oh, geez. And I'll be honest, I took my eye off the ball when that happened. Financially, I make around about 130 grand a year with health insurance covered, but after taxes, divorce settlements, my take home is closer to 40. Here's the real fear. If the business does go under, is it even possible to start over? I don't have a degree, and all my experience is in running this company. Would anyone even hire me? Am I out of options, Leanne?
Oh, I need a hug. You okay?
Yeah.
Do you know what? I want you to start this answer, Al, because you've been there.
Yeah, back in 2005, went bankrupt, £103,000. It was my first business, and it didn't go well. I went through a period feeling exactly like you for maybe about 6 months of going, oh my God, I'm going to have to go and get a job. Will anyone even employ me? The fact is that, firstly, that experience has shaped a lot of my decisions since. Secondly, you now know a lot about making bad decisions, which sounds really bad, but you know a lot about that. So if you just don't do that again, or you see another situation coming up, you've got experience of what happens if you take your eye off the ball. What happens if you overinvest in something? What happens if you bring on the wrong people? You've got all this experience. You learn more from the money you lose than the money you make. That's my belief in business. So first of all, I'm very optimistic. Someone's going to say, no, it's not over. No, you're absolutely fine. But if you do feel like that, first of all, just allow yourself to feel like that for a little bit. You're going to go through the 5 stages of grieving because something has died. Your business has died. You've probably gone through those stages with your divorce. You might be through them all. You might be acceptance. You might not be. But allow yourself to go through those. But the fact is, there is so much opportunity out there. And the fact is, you've been running a business, 17 years now? You've been running a business. You know so much. If you have to go and get a job for 6 months, 12 months, go and do that. Or perhaps go and say, right, I'm going to go and consult. And I'm going to consult for people who are in family businesses where it's suddenly taken a decline. You don't have to have the answers necessarily. You can just sit with someone and go, so what can we do? You coach them rather than sort of necessarily consult with them. That's my thoughts. Lee, fill in the gaps.
No, I think that's really good advice. It's not over. You are employable. You can rebuild this, is the headline thing to take away from this. It's not always going to be easy, but you can absolutely rebuild this. I think my first thing would be, if the business isn't working, if it's causing you more stress, if you're spending more money to try and keep it afloat and your heart's just not in it anymore, shut it down, close it down, wind it down. Do it now before you're forced to do it at a higher, with higher levels of debt than is necessarily required. Shut it down. There is, of course, going to be an emotional aspect to this because it's a family business and you've been in it for 20 years and your dad owned it before. But the world changes, things move on, things end. And as Al said, that's really sad. You're going to have to grieve that. And that ending is going to happen really quickly. And the psychological transition you're going to have to go through to accept that change is going to be really, really slow. So you are going to feel angry. You are going to feel fearful. You might feel shame. You might feel embarrassment. You might be angry. Feel it, because you have to process those emotions effectively to then move on to the next stage, to that new beginning. I would always recommend, if you can, if you've got the budget, the runway, engage a coach to help you with that, a counselor, a therapist, somebody who's going to help you with that reflective process to really deal with those emotions. Then going, I guess, onto the more practical things in terms of employability, you have learned, as Al said, so much over 20 years. And the last few years have been tough. 18 years before that, it was great. You've had a business for 20 years. You've been working in a business for 20 years.
Fabulous advice. And I really hope that it works out for you. Do take Leanne's advice. Do go back and listen to episode, I think it might be episode 30 or 40. Stephen Short is about family businesses. He's an expert in transition between family businesses and also ending them. And if you want some like one-to-one, then Leanne's email is in the show notes. So get in touch. Okay, on to question number 3. Sorry, I've lost count. HR is making me the bad guy over return to office. What do I do? Oh dear. I need some advice because I'm stuck in a really uncomfortable situation. I run a division of about 40 people in a company of around 1,000 employees, and the leaders have told us that we need to do a 4-day return to office policy, possible medical exceptions. One of my team members has legitimate medical needs. They have twice weekly doctor appointments, so commuting 4 days a week would be difficult. I'm fine with them working in the office 2 days a week, but it doesn't affect our workflow. But HR is pushing back. They're hinting that it's a consistency issue. Worse, they're telling the employee that I think it's important for everyone to be in for 4 days, which isn't true. Feels like HR doesn't want to approve exceptions, but they also don't want to say no themselves, making me the bad guy. Is there a way for me to push back without putting my own position at risk? And is this normal behavior from HR?
That's like saying, is it a normal behavior from accountant? We can talk about stereotypes and what people enjoy moaning about on LinkedIn. That's not my experience of HR, and there are many incredible HR professionals out there that are doing a really difficult job. So with that in mind, I would always be inclined to give them the benefit of the doubt. More than likely, they're getting pressure from senior leadership to have to implement this quickly and fully. That can get lost in translation when people are feeling the stress to get something done. In terms of, is there anything you can do? Yes. And I think the easiest thing you can do is ask for anything that they're telling you in terms of policy that needs to be implemented, specifically in terms of your team and this individual. Get it in writing. So it shows it's coming directly from the HR, it's directly from the company. It's not coming from you. You can then confidently say to your team, this isn't my change. I was more than happy having you guys in 2 days a week. This is where we're at. This is what it means. HR are also going to know what they can and can't do legally, both for good and potential evil, in terms of making reasonable adjustments for this person. I would lean into that. My feeling is that HR people are usually just under pressure. They're not out to get you or make employees' lives worse. And it really frustrates me when people will say that HR is on the side of the employer. It's like, well, a good HR person actually works as a partner, as that kind of mediator between the two. So I would get it in writing, go to HR, express your concerns about this individual in terms of the impact it's going to have on their quality of life, their quality of work, potential discrimination acts and behaviors going on as well. Once you've got that, have that conversation with your team with that information in writing, have a one-to-one with this individual to make sure you're not making any assumptions, see if there is a way that they can work with HR and you to figure out a working schedule that's going to meet everybody's needs. As we've talked about a few times on today's show, transitions are really hard and they can feel very emotive and it can be very easy to point blame and be frustrated. Sometimes we just need to give people the benefit of the doubt, get everything in writing to protect yourself. And make sure your job as a manager is to look out for your people, and that's what you're doing. So you're doing the right thing, but part of that job is working with other teams within the company to do that in a way that is sustainable for the organisation, as well as legal and ethical and right for the individual. So you're doing all the right things, write it down, give them the benefit of the doubt, and try and figure out a way where you can all work together, you, HR, and this employee, to find a solution that works.
Great advice. And I think the only thing I'd add to that is the way you've written this is quite emotive and is obviously something which you feel very responsible for. There's quite a good phrase to use, which is, that's just not possible, but what is. So perhaps you can start, less say, I'm not allowed to do that, and more go, the fact is that's not possible right now under what I've been told. However, what could we possibly look at which might be acceptable both terms? So like Leanne said, you're almost a mediator here between HR and and your team. So, try not to take it too personally. And I know it must feel really terrible because you obviously really like your team and you're trying to do the best for them. But, a great negotiator, if you want to listen to a great negotiator, go back and listen to John Smith, who was Maradona's agent. He's got a great book about negotiating. That's a weird way of saying it, negotiating. But also the episode has got really, really good stories in it. And all the time, he was stuck between teams and players and trying to get the best deal for both of them. And most of the time he would say, it's just not possible to do that. But what we can do is this. So that's my advice for what it's worth.
Lovely. And yeah, good luck. Thank you to everyone who wrote in this week. If you have a question for the Workplace Surgery, you'll find us at hello@truthliesandwork.com.
All the links are in the show notes. So that's all for now. Join us next Tuesday for another edition of This Week in Work, where we're going to be back in the studio rather than lying on a beach in Spain. We won't be on a beach. We'll be in a restaurant having tapas. And also, as I've said, keep saying, have a look at our YouTube channel. See if anything resonates. If you see a video, you go, oh, I really like that because it's usually chopped up from these. That would be really good feedback for us. If you see one you don't like, tell us as well in the comments as well, because we are really open to these comments. We're just trying to do our very best without becoming one of those YouTube influencers, which, we'll kind of hate, but we have to love.
A little bit harsh, but yeah, I'm all here for the YouTube and the hard people working to create great content. With that in mind, talking about great content, make sure you don't miss Thursday's episode. We'll be joined by Dr. Sarah Hughes, CEO of Mind. We'll be talking about serious mental illness, why prevention matters more than perks, and why culture, not just programs, is really what makes the difference. It's a conversation you don't want to miss. We will see you then.
And because we're on holiday, this is going to be audio only. There will be a video on YouTube, but it's probably going to be something with swirls on it. So you probably want to stick to your audio for that one. Right, we'll see you Thursday. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.